What did the weird kid in your school do that you'll never forget? I went to private school and the weird kid in our grade spent every morning before class, every afternoon after class, teaching the two parrots in our lobby to say "wanna get high?" Yes, we had parrots in our lobby. After about 2 weeks, every time you walked past their cage, you could hear them ask, "Wanna get high?" Run like Naruto Sonic. The kid wasn't exactly weird but rather misunderstood. Nonetheless, we were sitting in health class and the teacher is lecturing about how having multiple sexual partners gives you a high risk of contracting STDs. This popular kid decided to make funnier remarks saying, "Well, I have multiple partners." So the weird kid goes, "Yay, your right hand and your left hand." It was audible enough for a lot of the class to hear and I gave him a lot of respect. Even the teacher chuckled. He poked his bully in the eye, sending the bully to the hospital with permanent eye damage. The bully kept getting in his face, tearing him to hit him, so he kind of deserved it. Don't mess with the weird kid. He sat down in a chair with me. It was a small chair. I was in a bad mood that day and he saw that. I think he could relate. This kid was constantly mad or sad. He would scream until his ears went red and bang his head on the wall. He was also creepy when it came to a girl he liked and would stalk her. He liked being the creepy one though, but that day I was just so sad. My home life was bad and my friends were being jerks. He sat with me to watch a movie and just smiled at me. He was nice to me. A few times after that he would help me with my bags, and when it was our last day as a class together he hugged me when I was crying and said he understood. I know it's not the story you're looking for, but it's the one I have. He used to go into the bathroom, get completely naked, and then proceed to wrap himself in toilet paper and walk around like a mummy. The fact he did this isn't what amazes me, it's the fact he apparently did this on a regular basis. Wore a horse costume to school, like full on fursuit. Then he trotted around the halls and neighed all day. He was odd. Edit. This was in high school, and he was well known in the school for having behavioral issues. He had no boundaries and didn't understand social interaction. A lot of kids were cruel to him. Other kids left him alone. Others tried to be his friend and then ran for the hills when he overwhelmed them with invasive questions and excessive clinging. The teachers took a live and let live attitude. The actual costume itself wasn't technically against dress code, only the horse head. I wasn't in any of his classes so I'm not sure if his teachers made him take the mask off. I just remember seeing him in the hallways with it on and thinking there's no way that isn't Blaze. And it was. We used to get these little packs of cheese at lunch. A girl in my class used to put them in the foot of her tights during pay so it would get warm. Then after pay class she would smush the foot white cheese into paste, rip a small hole in the corner and squeeze it into her mouth. This kid believed that dragons were real and basically dedicated his life to finding them. He caught a squirrel, killed it with his bare hands, and then stuffed it in the vending machine. High school. This guy is always dressed like a cowboy, with hat, boots, jacket and even a belt with 2 prop revolvers and boots with spurs, which he got in trouble for a few times he had it. One memorable day was when he brought a stuffed horse head toys with a long stick attached to them and ran around the school hallways with it yelling hee-haw and twirling an imaginary cowboy whip. Senior year this dude even found a cowboy club in our school. A month later, we had 4 of these cowboys hee-hawing through the hallways riding their horse head sticks. He only showered once every 7 days. His reasoning was that he didn't want girls to be all over him. Farting while the teacher was speaking. It wasn't a small fart, it was a biggest one, as if he had eaten 20 kilograms of onions. The teacher continued to teach right after the shock, but I will never forget his face, and never his fart. It was terrible, just terrible. Kid got hit in the stomach by a dodgeball, himself, picked the sharp off the ground, proceeded to put it in his pocket so no one would know. Everyone in class saw. He gave me a present at Christmas, and I will never forget it. He was a big slow kid named Raymond. He was weird, smelled kind of funny, and had a gruff voice. Did a lot of weird things in class. He had a really hard time making friends, I think, for obvious reasons. This was 6th grade, and there was a lot of snickering. I don't think his family had much money. I thought he was kind though, and I tried to be nice to him as I didn't have many friends either. One day out of the blue he asks me if I liked cars. I told him I did, A few days later he gives me a wad of wrapping paper and tape and tells me Merry Christmas. Inside were 2 Matchbox cars. They were not new cars, or even in the box. I could tell they were once his own toys. There was a little note that said, "Hope you like these, your friend, Ray." It was really very touching and such a nice gesture. I wish I had thought to bring something for him. I had probably only spoken to him a handful of times, ever, but apparently that was more than anyone else cared to. I think those beat up little toy cars were the best gift anyone has ever given me. Rachel. She wore glasses, had short hair and dyed it orange yellow, and was super into anime. She wore some type of animal tail all through high school. During class, PE, and when she wasn't in class she wore animal ears. I had science with her and asked her about her tail and she hissed at me, sneezed and pulled out a large red snot. Everyone watched as it seemed to never end. His arm stretched out until it was no longer bent, and the snot was still running from his nose to his hand. It then proceeded to fling out of his nose and across the classroom onto a desk. One kid threw up. Okay, I got the perfect story for this. I went to little Swedish primary school and at about age 9-10, a Danish kid joined our class for 1 year. This guy has a lot of stories centered around him, but the one I remember in particular was during music class one time. Yeah, for some reason we had a music class where we just stood as a choir and sang random songs the teacher played on the piano. For some reason the Dane was really mad this particular day. He did not want to sing at all. He was fist fighting the teachers, literally throwing chairs at them and screaming what I imagine to be the most vulgar Danish curse words. Meanwhile, me and the rest of my class is singing some cute child's song. I always imagine us being in a movie with the Dane in the main role. He is fighting in super slow-mo and all you can hear is the choir of kids kindly singing sad song. There was also the Chinese guy who peed on the floor in gym class because he was too scared to ask if he could go to the bathroom. But the Dane was the most memorable guy. He used to get mad to the point of attacking whenever you said certain words. They were not even remotely offensive either. The biggest one was Jefferson. Said it before, I'll say it again. He brought in a porn mag for silent reading when we were 8-9. Also, one day during break he broke down in tears all of a sudden, saying he felt his uncle die. He then wouldn't listen to anyone trying to reason with him. It took the school contacting his family and eventually getting his perfectly alive uncle on the phone to get him responding again. Well, I was the weird kid in my graduating class, as I was the only nerd geek out of the bunch. What I did to the bully group from my graduating class is something I'll never forget. I intimidated them to the point of flinching as graduation got closer. I didn't speak with them, didn't touch them or do anything to them. I would just starting 6 months before graduation, smile when I saw them. This got to them over time, and from speaking to some neutrals I learned that they started thinking that I was going to do something to them, to get back at them for being picked on for years. Seeing them flinch when I'd smile at them was enough, especially when I walked over to them at graduation and said hello, this being me coming up behind them. Never seen them jump from a standstill so high before. Well, this one guy is a communist. Whenever we went to the computer lab he would just look at pictures of Stalin and other communist stuff, didn't even try to hide it. This was all he ever talked about. Come to think of it, a few times I've overheard him talking about becoming leader of Russia, I should not, and forcefully spreading communism to the rest of the world. All of this in an American high school. He was also really pervy and sexist, but would talk about how he was a gentleman. Couple things he has said. After I nuke North America I would keep the president alive so that I could torture him. Talking to his computer. How dare you disobey me? I am a god. There was one kid, Brian, and he was 100% convinced that he was a dinosaur. Every recess he would frolic around, with his arms up at his chest like a T-Rex, growling at people. He talked normally sometimes too, but every conversation would somehow lead back to dinosaurs. Fun kid. He once went into a berserker nerd rage in grade 3 or 4. He jumped on another unpopular kid and started trying to rip the guy's ear off. A ton of other kids tried to stop him but he just batted them all away. He eventually bit into the kid's back and bite off a chunk of skin. It was pretty messed up. He was getting his ass beat for being weird so I one punch KO'd the kid that was kicking him while he was down. Total cheap shot, but the guy deserved it. The weird kid then wrote me an 11-page letter that also had passages from his mom and dad about how no one had ever stuck up for him and how I inspired him to take karate. I still see him every once in a while. He's a total hipster, chicken suit, fixed gear, but still a really nice guy. I should ask him if karate paid off.